Welcome to this training mission in which we will talk about the basics of navigation in the F-15E. As always, please wait for everything to load properly. I pause the sim so that we can go through all the basic concepts. When we finish, I'll unpause and let you fly the jet. First order of business is to set up your displays. Bring up the ADI on your left MPD by pressing push button 11 to enter the menu. And then push button 1. On the right MPD, set up your HSI by pressing push button 11. Followed by push button 3. The tactical situation display is already displayed on the MPCD. Alright, now switch to the Nav Master mode. Let's start with the Tactical Situation Display, or TSD, on the MPCD. As the name implies, it's very useful for showing you your exact position on the moving map and displaying the current flight plan. Your aircraft is marked with a cross, and you will notice that there are different shapes for the steer points, which we will cover in more detail in a separate lesson. The ADI, or the Attitude Director Indicator on the left MPD, is your artificial horizon, which also duplicates some of the data shown on your HUD, like the heading scale and the command bug at the top. The Horizontal Situation Indicator, or HSI, on the right MPD, is the main display used for navigation. It also allows the aircrew to switch between different steering modes, most of which are also coupled with the autopilot, a matter to be discussed in greater detail in other lessons. In this sortie, we will focus on the nav steering mode, which is selected by pressing push button 10. Just above it, you can see the nav data block, which displays your currently selected steer point, bearing and distance to it in nautical miles, as well as time to go marked with an E, or estimated time of arrival marked with A. The currently selected steer point, 1 alpha in this case, is visible on the screen provided that it is within the display range shown between PB16 and 17. Our nav data block tells us that steer point 1A is 57 nautical miles away, so we need to increase the range by pressing PB16. Do it now. Note that only the selected steer point is shown on the HSI, and there's no way to view a full sequence of points here, unlike on the TSD. However, it is possible to simultaneously have both the current steer point and TACAN station displayed on the screen. To turn on the TACAN, have a look at the UFC. Our TACAN is currently set to off, which is indicated by the legend next to menu button 2. Let's tune it to Katasi by typing 44 into the scratch pad. Press 4. And 4 once again. Good, now press menu button 2. The TACAN symbol should have appeared on the HSI about your 1 o'clock. Okay, time to learn how to change the steer points. Unlike many other aircraft, there is no HOTAS button that can switch between them. Instead, you'll have to use the UFC or rely on the auto sequencing mode, which we will cover in a moment. The currently selected steer point is displayed next to menu button 10. In order to change it, simply type the number of the new steer point on the UFC. In this case, press 2. Well done. Now enter it by pushing menu button 10. Steer point number 2 is now visible on the HSI, or rather, would be visible, but the range scale is set too high and it sits on top of the TACAN symbol. Press push button 17 3 times to bring the scale down all the way to 10 nautical miles. Good. Now you should see 2 arrows on the outside of the compass rose. The one with the line in the middle is your TACAN bearing pointer. The other one, sitting on top of the 2 squares, is the nav bearing pointer. The squares are your command heading marker, which in the nav mode is aligned with the steer point, with bearing shown next to the command heading legend. In other steering modes, command heading can be moved around using push buttons 1 and 2, or by using the UFC keyboard to type the desired value. Another important feature is the automatic sequencing option. When boxed, it will cause the steer point to switch to the next one as soon as the aircraft passes over it or crosses the 39 line within 2 nautical miles of it. Let's see how it works in practice. In a moment, I'll unpause the sim. We'll fly towards the TACAN station, but without selecting it as our nav source. In other words, keep the nav mode boxed. Ready? Okay, turn towards the TACAN, disregard steering cues on the HUD, and keep the TACAN bearing pointer on the lubber line on the HSI. As sequence point 2 is less than 2 miles away from the station, it should automatically change once you cross its 39 line without having to pass directly overhead. Okay, we have switched to sequence point 3. Now have a look at the TSD. You'll note that it's marked with a square and not with a circle, as was the case with previous points. That's because waypoint 4 is a target point indicated by a triangle, which makes the waypoint immediately before it an ingress point, denoted by a square. Last thing I want to cover in this introduction is selecting target points as your current steer point. Target points are denoted by a number, followed by a dot, and this is what you have to type on the UFC keyboard. Press 4, followed by a dot, and now push menu button 10. Good. I know I said this will be the last thing, but let's have a quick look at the UFC options before we finish. You're now looking at menu 1, but the most important ones for navigation are data 1 and data 2, accessed using the, you guessed it, data button. Press it once. This is the data 1 menu, which provides you with a lot of interesting information and options. The first one is the distance and bearing to the currently selected sequence point, mirroring the information displayed in the nav block on the HUD and the HSI. Next is your estimated time of arrival, which you can easily change into estimated time en route by pressing menu button 2. Try it now. Third is the option to display true airspeed on the HUD below the indicated airspeed. Turn it on now. You can also choose to show the ground speed instead, which is probably more useful, by pushing menu button 4. Try it now. As you can see, you cannot display both the true airspeed and the ground speed at the same time. You can have either one of the two or none. Moving on, current wind speed and direction is displayed next to menu button 7. Above it you can see the Zulu time. Moving up is your radar altitude. Pressing menu button 9 allows you to display it on the HUD. Do it now. Finally, the currently selected steer point, when you press it, you'll enter a sequence point submenu. What are you waiting for? Good. This submenu offers you detailed information about the current and any other sequence points you choose. It also allows you to add new sequence points, change existing ones, and even go deeper and open several other submenus, which we'll cover in a separate lesson. And that's it for today. We really only scratched the surface of all you need to know about navigation in this lesson, but it should be enough to get you going, especially if you have a competent Wizzo in the back seat guiding you along.